You open this door with the key of reason. Beyond it is another dimension. A dimension of truth. A dimension of freedom. A dimension of joy. You're moving into the land of both the ideal and the real, of the possible and the actual. You've just crossed over into the Capitalist Corner.
Where reason meets reality, welcome to the Capitalist Corner.
Welcome to the Capitalist Corner, folks. I am your host, Mark Pellegrino, and also the chairman of the American Capitalist Party, along with my co-host and vice chair of the American Capitalist Party, Michael Liebowitz, who is also a couple minutes late, and that inspires many questions, my friend. What was happening, and why do you look so pale over there? It's like you're.
I don't know. I think it might be the jacket. I was noticing myself that I look pale. My hair doesn't look the normal color. No worries. I'm late because I was in the middle of a workout, and while I was working out, I got a text about my views on, guess what?
The war.
The war in Iran. So remember to share this from X while I'm talking, and I'll tell you what happened. So
already done.
Okay, so it was in relation to a clip that Persephone must have posted where I said, and I stand by this, that even if at this point we were to end up with a democratic Iran and this regime would fall, that doesn't outdo the damage done to the country by the violation of the Constitution and the violation of the War Powers Resolution.
Correct.
So I get a text and it says, I don't understand this. Da, 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 da. The guy makes an argument. Okay. So what I did, and I'm not going to, none of you know who it is. I'm not going to say his name. I just want to tell you what I did. I knew what his argument implied, but I didn't want to state it. So I simply did this. I submitted it to Claude, I submitted it to Grok, and I submitted it to ChatGPT. All gave the same answer to the question, which philosophical perspective is being argued here? You ready?
Go ahead.
Moral pragmatism, political realism. This is from Claude. Moral pragmatism, political realism, precedent as moral mitigation, separation of principles from concrete judgments. So that is from Claude.
It figures.
Okay, hold on. Hold on. The next one from ChatGPT. The philosophy expressed here is a kind of pragmatic institutional realism mixed with elements of legal realism, anti-utopianism, and possibly a mild form of consequentialist political reasoning. All right, let's see what else we got. Now we'll go to Grok. Now I'm getting the text in response to my sharing those, and I'm sure what the argument is going to be. Oh, I don't care what the AIs say. Of course, I could have said the same goddamn thing myself because I know that's exactly what's being argued. Mm-hmm. Right? But then I'm going to spend all day arguing, with non sequiturs. So I figured if I submit it to 3 AIs who have no stake in this game at all, and now the argument's coming, the justification, but your own Brooke says, whatever. Okay, according to Grok, this is pragmatism combined with a rejection of the nirvana fallacy and a realistic perspective on politics. Core philosophy breakdown. The argument expresses pragmatism, the view that ideas, principles, and actions should be judged primarily by their practical consequences and workability in the real world rather than by rigid adherence to abstract ideals in isolation. And then they go on to acknowledge theory versus practice, dichotomy, yada, yada, yada. I am so fed up with this. And I like this guy. I really do. I'm just fed up with it. I would be much happier if these people would just say, you know what? Fuck our principles. This war is that important. At least then I could say, amen, I respect you. But they want to cling to the principles while violating them. It reminds me of the Trumpsters who, did I just do a little freeze up or something?
It's like a little staccato movement, but
yeah, it is. Okay, it reminds me of the Trump's conservatives who abandoned conservatism, but claim they're the conservatives all along. They're the constitutionalists all along. Just tell the truth. Just say, you know what? That other stuff's not as important to me as this is. And there's nothing more to argue about. right? But when you are trying to argue that you are operating from the same epistemology and ethics that I am and acting like I'm the one that's betraying them, man, fuck you. Seriously, I'm so fed up with this bullshit, and I'm so fed up with these people. They're a bunch of goddamn hypocrites. Look it. I've been mild so far in my criticism of this shit. I really have. But if your hatred of Iran is so bad, your love of Israel is so much that you're willing to throw out the arguments you've been making for decades, to hell with you. I've got no use for you. I really don't. I'm sick of it. Unfollow me, unlike me, hate me, malign me, whatever. Two things you cannot do. Two things you cannot do is accurately argue against my integrity and argue accurately against my reasoning. Period. So you ask Mark why I'm late. That's why I'm late. I so want to put this issue behind me with these people. I don't care. You've proven yourselves to be as irrational as the most irrational subjectivist or libertarian that you've been criticizing for decades. So just go on about your business.
They're not going to do that, Michael, because they have a real stake in this, as we do, of course. Our stake is we want to preserve constitutional integrity. We want to preserve the separation of powers because we understand that once those are breached, and they have been breached, it sets a trend that just keeps happening. And at some point, you have to draw a line in the sand and say no more. And this is the point. I'm sorry it's happening during a war that in a lot of ways is the right war. Certainly this regime is an awful, awful regime. But going about it in an unconstitutional fashion is what is enabling Trump to be so frickin' chaotic and to run roughshod basically over a wide portion of the population, Michael, who no longer sits well with this conflict. So you're in the right. I think you're going to have to continue to fight, though, because nobody's going to give up this fight. And we certainly shouldn't.
So Akira Felix says, I asked Persephone to keep me away from the online arguments. This isn't an online argument. This is a personal message.
Okay, so I typed in the chat something that you should see, Michael, in the private chat. I definitely want to know the identity of this person. But let's talk about pragmatism for a minute, since I think it's permeating a lot of the news today. Hold on, somebody's calling me. Let's turn that off. Stop, please. Stop, please. Stop, please. So, wait a minute. I want to get this. So, we're having an inflation issue, Michael.
We've got a lot of issues going on right now.
But right now, we have an inflation issue going on. Of course, when Trump entered office, he was going to be the guy who was going to beat inflation. A sizable portion of the population thought billionaire, businessman, the perfect kind of combination to beat inflation back. He was going to bring in a golden age. This isn't necessarily what's happening. Really, none of the stuff that he has claimed would happen has effectively happened. And right now we are at a general inflation rate of about 3.8%, with variations, of course, in different markets, different products. But Michael, this is hearkening back to about 3 or 4 years ago, and it's suggesting that things will probably get worse. What do you think about this?
Well, as I said yesterday, filling up my girlfriend's Honda Accord with gas cost $63. I remember before I went to prison, my grandmother had a Honda Accord and $20 filled the tank.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Gas prices are obviously on the rise. Inflation's on the rise. Wages aren't keeping pace with inflation. This is not good news. And there's no sign of it ending. Right? None. I mean, we're at the point where we're, like at the beginning of the war, the Constitution was my main argument and still is. But this is not going well. The economy is not going well. And you can see all the MAGA folk online who, when Biden was in office, complained about gas prices, Trump promised gas prices were going to go down. The MAGA people were saying anybody advocating for war with Iran should go fight it themselves, while they're now advocating for the war in Iran. There's so much hypocrisy out there. It makes my head want to explode. I don't even understand how people can live with themselves. I can't even fathom such a thing. But the economy is not booming. I think that since Trump's been in office, it's grown at an anemic 2% or 2.2%.
2.2.
Yeah. Inflation is now up to 3.8%. And that's just, the whatever, they have different metrics. I don't remember which one it was. There's other wholesale prices are even up higher than that, if I'm remembering correctly from what I read this morning. These are not good signs. And by the way, historically, wars don't bode well for inflation.
No, they don't, because governments like to print and borrow in order to fund those wars. And oftentimes wars are what bring us statism. We were relatively low on the statist scale before the Civil War, Michael. And then the Civil War gave us the first income taxes and the expansion of the executive that has never actually retreated since that time. Thank you, Jenna Klein, for $5. No one can drive you crazy unless, what did the rest of it say? Unless you make them, let them?
Yeah, I generally do agree. But at the same time, we are in an intellectual battle here. And I don't know the alternative. Do you just turn a blind eye to it and act like it doesn't exist? Because this is what's coming, folks. Just remember this. What's today's date? May 13th, 2026. Remember I told you this. Might be a year from now, might be a month now, might be 5 years from now. The people who advocated for this war and did so contrary to the Constitution, a lot of them are going to make an argument where they want a politician reined in by the rule of law. Other people, rightly so, are going to point to them and say, "Woe ye hypocrite." Right? And not only that,
and that will be us.
Yes, but not only that, what they're going to say is objectivists hold no principles. It won't be directed at the few or the more than a few. It's going to be directed at objectivism writ large. You think I'm wrong? Remember the date. Please remember this, because it's coming. I guarantee it. Guarantee it.
I agree with you. Mr. Deagle says, I understand some of their arguments and even agreed with them at the beginning of the war, but right now I don't get how they can still believe it. Well, Michael, I mean, once you make a commitment like this and stake your self-esteem in a way in the idea, right. And once you have a little bit of power and leverage, as some of these people now feel they have, it's super hard to give that stuff up. You have to have an extraordinary amount of integrity to give that up. Well,
here's the thing, Mark, right? Let me just say for you, I've been proven wrong in my life about serious things. And it stings to have to give that up. I'm not going to lie, but I did it because truth takes precedent. When you and I started debating before this war started about Iran, you were as adamant about war with Iran as anybody, but you heard the reasoning, you heard the facts, you did the research, and you said, you know what? As much as I want that regime gone, I'm wrong about this.
Correct.
You had the character and integrity to do so because that's what people with character and integrity do.
I agree. And if you want to make a claim to having character and integrity, that means it has to be unbreached, folks. Unbreached character and integrity. Breached character and integrity means basically no ethics. I'm sorry to say, but look, you asked me what was going on, so I told you. But I really want to move on from this subjectivist stuff. I really do, because I think that we have to expand our reach. It's time to not try to preach to the choir. It's time to preach to people that have not heard a principled, rational message for capitalism. So that's what I really want to focus on. So if you supported capitalism and you thought that Trump was the way to go, I hope you've been disillusioned by that. I hope you've been disillusioned by the idea that he is going to bring on a wonderful, wonderful, Shangri-La type economy. He's not. He didn't do it in his first term. He's not doing it now. The economy is not doing well. Inflation's kicking up.
And he just likes to interfere in the economy, and we'll see some of that later on. But there actually are people out there that advocate for principled capitalism. Mark and I are two of them. But there are others. Robert Nacer, for instance, yelling
Yes,
preach.
sir. Yeah, and Michael, so many folks voted for him because he fought the left, and they were willing to forego their principles because he was the only guy out there who stood up to the left and fought them. And they thought that in the culture wars, the right would ultimately win the culture wars, and so were willing to let their principles go in order for this guy to be their attack dog. And what's happened, Michael? Well, ideas have consequences, as does pragmatism. It has its consequences. Once you give up principles, they are super hard to get back. They're super hard for you to claim they're legitimate once you've given them up for some reason or another. These principles are either inviolable, they either work for all circumstances or they don't. And what many objectivists are saying, I hate to beat this horse, is that, look, give up the principles because we want this regime gone. It's just not the way to work. Anyway, look. We have energy prices are responsible for the sharp increase. They climbed by 3.8% in April after jumping over 10% in March. And they have increased nearly 18% in the past year. And gasoline and fuel are up 28% and 54% in the last year, respectively. Michael, it's super hard to have an economy when energy prices are spiking like this. This affects everyone across the board, and this affects the way businesses is conducted. This affects supply chains. This affects everything.
Airline flights are way up. And look, I'm poor, right? I'm poor. You raise my gas prices by a third, that hits me. I mean, not that it doesn't hit everybody. I'm just talking about from somebody that does not have a lot of money. Every little bit hurts when this happens. And there's no ending to it in sight.
There is no ending to it in sight.
But I forgot, Mark. Mark, I got to interrupt because
go
with my agitation and late arrival, we didn't get to go over some of the other things we got going on. We didn't tell them to go to thecapitalistcorner.org. We didn't tell them to buy the merch. We didn't tell them to follow us on Twitch. We didn't tell them that I'll be recording later on today with Jim Valiant on the virtue of justice. That will be out tomorrow on The Rational Egoist.
Nice.
And today at 2:30 p.m. Eastern Time, Persephone and I will be doing Everyday Ethics, and she has no excuse for not coming up with a good topic. And then at 3:15 p.m. Eastern Time, we're doing Crime, Corrections, and Culture.
Very good. Robert Nacer says, wait, Trump isn't for Make America Free Again? Are you saying he's a lying, cheating, power-lusting dictator wannabe, a manipulating tyrant, treating America like his personal reality show? That's great. We got to steal that somehow, and I got to post that on X just to make more enemies, man, because that's just the way I roll. Anyway, I wanted to read this from a little snippet you gave me because it says prices are up while wages are down. Inflation outpaced wage growth in April, Michael, and for the first time in 3 years, according to the Labor Department released yesterday, inflation adjusted hourly wages fell by 0.3% year over year as inflation climbed 3.8%. It's the fastest increase in 3 years. Economists largely attribute the rising inflation to the energy chokehold caused by Iran's effective closure of the Straits of Hormuz, a critical shipping route for about 1/5 of the world's oil and natural gas. Energy costs climbed roughly 18% from a year earlier, with gasoline up 28% and airfare up 21%. That's almost a third, Michael. We're talking almost a quarter. We're talking about prices that are prohibitive now to travel. This is going to affect businesses across the spectrum, as I've already said. Core inflation includes food and energy prices rose by 2.8%. And the Federal Reserve is, of course, watching this because they're under pressure by Trump to lower interest rates.
Yeah. That'd be the great thing to do during inflation, by the way.
Right, during inflation. Let's lower the interest rates, stoke a boom. Let's push more money into the economy and pretend like it's actually doing well.
So for those who like to see me a little annoyed during the Everyday Ethics show, Persephone just texted me today's topic. There's a good chance you're going to see some annoyance on my part if you tune in.
Oh, now, can you tell us what that is? Or is it going to be a surprise?
What should I do, Persephone? Nod yes if I should share it. Yeah. We're going to discuss the male loneliness epidemic, I guess. Is what God's Christ's sake.
The what? Male loneliness?
The loneliness epidemic, the male loneliness
That's worthy.
epidemic.
That's worthy. Nico should be on this because he's into that whole manosphere.
Yeah, I already interviewed him about that. Did you watch it?
No, not yet. I'm in the dark continent, man. I am cut off.
Oh my God!
All media. The only media I get, man, is from you sending me 1,000 articles and AI analysis of those articles.
Look. I just want everybody on the record to know this, and I want everybody that remembers to please say yes. Who remembers Mark Pellegrino having a bad computer a few months back? And I told him to go buy a new one. And he said, I can't go buy a new one right now because my wife is in town and I have to spend time with her. Who remembers that?
Oh, wait, we're going back to that?
We are, because you just made the new excuse.
Both of you have said that this is so. Not that I don't agree that it is. It might have happened, and I simply don't remember it.
Okay.
Listen.
As that is the case, you being in the dark continent is no excuse for not watching my episode with Nikos. You have internet there.
That's true.
That's my point.
I got to come up with something, Michael. How long did it take me to read your book after saying I was going to read it for a long time?
It took a lot of shaming, and that's why we're shaming you now.
Yeah, but it wasn't just, I didn't feel any shame. I have to tell you, I don't feel shame. But I just thought it was the right thing to do since I said I was going to do it.
All right. Pepperidge Farm remembers.
I got to read your shit. It's true. It's not shit. It was good stuff. I got to read it.
Oh, man. You did read it, right?
I did read it. Yeah, I did read it. I liked it.
You should have interviewed me about the book, but you didn't.
Look at you now. Now you're pushing the envelope now.
Well, you're a celebrity and you get a lot of views. Okay. Yes. So the economy sucks.
No. My fan base ain't interested in politics, man. Don't you remember one of the things the libertarians and the commies always throw at me is, look at Pellegrino got ratioed. Nobody gives a shit about the stuff he's saying. Well, that's because they're not interested in politics. They're interested in supernatural. They love Sam and Dean, right? And Castiel. They don't want to hear about Trump, for crying out loud. In fact, it's a torture for us to do it, but we have to do it because, it's news, and the guy makes the news cycle, whether we like it or not. Hey, look, we have a comment here. I think you should post up here. It's in the private chat. I think it's helpful to illustrate that economic growth.
It's from Megan Ribbons. I know where it is. I'll find it.
Yeah, from Megan.
Yeah.
In the 1800s.
So here's the problem: is one of the things is I don't like GDP growth as a measure.
It's not a good measure.
No, unfortunately, it's basically all we have, so we have to go buy something. But to say, well, the 1800s, the economy grew at 3% is problematic, and I'll tell you why. Because you, first of all, had the on-again, off-again situation with the National Bank. You also had some economic catastrophes caused by the banks. And you also had the Civil War, which, upended things quite a bit. So it's difficult to just say, well, in the 1800s, it grew this much. What I would like to see done is isolate those periods that were the freest. And I'm going to guess that's going to be from 1865 to 1895 and see what the economic growth was during that period would probably be the best. But even with that, like I said, I reference GDP because we have nothing else. And because the president, of course, has promised, astronomical GDP. And then when it doesn't happen, he's pissed.
Yeah,
he lies about it. Whatever.
GDP also contains spending from
government spending.
No good. Look, from the 1870s to 1880s, net national product grew at 6.8%. Yeah. It feels funny to me to hear anemic numbers like 3% when there was less regulation and inventions were happening like mad, Michael. I mean, our world was literally transformed from the late 1800s to the early 1900s. We got radio technology, we went from telegraphs to radio technology, flight, automobiles, the motion picture, the light bulb. I mean, electricity that spread through rural areas, not just in cities. I mean, we became an entirely different world, and this is what inspired guys like H.G. Wells. Science fiction writers. Go ahead.
Wait a second. I need to know what the hell is happening here. This guy's back. Where the hell have you been?
Wait, what is that?
That's Deeper with Diego. I don't know what he posted. I don't really care.
What is that?
I don't know. I want to know Why is my energy saver on? Oh, because I didn't plug back in. That's why.
So, Michael, anyway, I'm saying that this robust economy that was happening in the late 1800s and early 1900s was precisely what guys like H.G. Wells used as their format. They thought literally by the by the 20s and 30s we would have flying cars, for crying out loud, and we probably would if the government hadn't come in and shackled production like they do. I just have a sense that those numbers are pretty small, and if you look at it, it's a very complex economic dynamic to sort this stuff out. But I think it was a much higher production rate during the Gilded Age.
I forgot. We got another advertisement to make, and I'm surprised Persephone did not get on me for this. I'm very upset about this, Persephone. You should know better, of all people. But especially with all I got going on. But Saturday, on our weekend edition of the Capitalist Corner, it is this Saturday, right, Persephone? What do you mean you don't know? What don't you know? When is Megan coming on? Is Megan coming on Saturday? Hold on. Is Megan coming on Saturday?
We haven't finalized it yet, but that is the goal. Yeah.
All right. Megan, are you coming on Saturday? Megan is going to be joining the Capitalist Corner weekend edition, where we're going to be discussing education. I believe primary and secondary education. But I thought it was confirmed for this Saturday. Maybe I'm mistaken. Maybe I'm wrong. Megan, please let me know. Just type a yes, no, maybe so, whatever. So that's the deal. But either way, Megan is going to be on eventually, right, Persephone? Now Persephone nods yes. Persephone usually does a very good job. Okay, Megan says she's honing in on our focus. Yes, okay. So Megan will be joining Saturday, 12 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to be discussing education. So Megan's going to have to take the lead because really I don't have much education. So that's going to be great.
So, Michael, left and right, as usual, in the horseshoe diagram that we're getting with respect to ideology lately, both are coming on the same side of this idea that it's billionaires and these huge corporations that are buying up houses that's partly contributing to the housing scarcity problem out there. And so a lot of the young folks out there who are socialist minded have taken this, of course, and using it for their devour the rich thing. Let's kill the billionaires, because look what they're doing. They're creating a housing shortage. It turns out that houses that are purchased in this way are about 0.7% of all housing purchases in the nation. It's a very, very small portion of housing, and still they're not held, Michael, in trust. They're not held to raise the prices of rents or to raise the prices of mortgages. They're actually just sold on the market. And to prohibit these, as the latest bills in Congress are trying to do, right? Trump fully behind this. He's made a very public statement of how he wants to stop companies from buying up housing, because he, like every other economically stupid person out there, thinks it's actually doing something harmful. But it will, in fact, harm the economy for him to do that, to stop this kind of development, to halt this kind of demand. What say you about this? Because this is madness to me. This left-right obsession with killing billionaires in every single respect and investors.
Kathy Cassio, thank you for the $2.99 super sticker.
Thank you,
Greatly
Kathy.
appreciated. Oh, real quick, I watched Face in the Crowd the other day. We talked about that on here. Last night, I'm only halfway through, so don't spoil it. I started watching Apocalypse Now. First time ever.
Really? Nice.
I love that character that Robert Duvall plays. That dude was awesome. Okay.
Well, he was either nominated. He was nominated for an Academy Award, and I don't think he won, but he was nominated for that.
Yeah, he was great. He was hilarious. I was dying with his obsession.
I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Yeah,
it smells like.
Yeah, but 2 minutes later, he's blaming the napalm because he can't surf. He said he loved the napalm, and then when the wind was blowing, he said, it's the goddamn napalm.
Yeah.
He can't
surf.
surf.
They cleared the tree line, and that's all that he cared about, right? Because he wanted his buddy Lance to surf, for crying out.
Yeah, right.
He made him surf.
Yeah. So I did not like the book Heart of Darkness, Megan, either, which Apocalypse Now is based on, but I am enjoying the movie so far. I think Joseph Conrad's a very dense writer. Like I don't really like it. I don't find him to be a very good communicator. Either way, yeah. The thing is billionaires and millionaires are an easy target because most of us are not billionaires and millionaires. So if you are a politician and you blame the millionaires and billionaires, you likely will be able to gather up a large coalition of people to vote for you, to support you, to get involved in your shenanigans. But the fact of the matter is that the restrictions that the Republicans in the Senate, I think it was, Mark, correct me if I'm wrong, they're trying to pass a bill, or they did pass a bill. What you're going to do is disincentivize home building, which is going to drive up the cost, not bring it down. It's the exact opposite of what they're saying they want.
Well, you couldn't ask for a better perfect storm, Michael, for them to come in and claim that the market once again couldn't supply the demand out there, and they have to take control of it even more and give us more of the socialization and centralizations causing the problem in the frickin' first place. So much for Trump's business acumen. He doesn't understand that this kind of investment is actually good and you don't disincentivize it.
All right.
Or if he does understand it, Michael, he's sacrificing it for for his MAGA movement.
So what did you think about this New York Times story, Mark?
Which one? Because I couldn't open it because there was a paywall, but go ahead.
Well, I sent you the X version of it anyway. The author of the New York Times article posted what he basically was talking about on X. It's from Jonathan Swan.
Okay, yes, I saw this. Is this so the Jonathan Swan X tweet says here, classified military intelligence assessments from early this month show Iran has regained access to most of its missile sites, launchers, and underground facilities, including U.S. intel assesses Iran has restored operational access to 30 of its 33 missile sites it maintains along the Straits of Hormuz. And 90% of Iran's underground missile sites are partially or fully operational. So much, Michael, for we've pretty much ended the bombing. We've pretty much destroyed their military. We've pretty much destroyed their capacity to fight back. Well, it seems like the most important ordinance that they have is around the Straits of Hormuz. And the great majority of that ordinance is still intact and prepared to be leveled against civilian boats trying to trade and exchange in the world. A criminal act, in my view, but one that the president seems hard pressed not to do anything about. Even though the world is saying it's time to open the Straits of Hormuz, he seems to be waiting and holding out for some kind of mythical deal with the regime.
Yeah, he's the deal maker. Somebody actually said to me the other day something along the lines of, I'm encouraging the Iranian regime because I'm insisting on diplomacy. And I'm like, dude, it's your president that is doing all the diplomacy talk, not me. But anyways, yeah, I mean, the article was from the New York Times, so I'm sure all the defenders of Trump will point that out. You can't trust the New York Times. Fair. I don't find them the most reliable source. But you know who I find them more reliable than? Trump.
Yes.
So if I've got to choose between them and Trump, I'm going to go with them. Does that mean that the story is 100% accurate? No, doesn't mean that. But nevertheless, it does disturb me that it's even a possibility. And, you know, with all the, negotiations and deal making and everything else, they've certainly had enough time to regroup at this point, right? Again, from the beginning, yeah, we've won the war, Akira, 13 times since it started. I first opposed the war. I'll say it again and again because recently somebody said I refused to be pinned down. I opposed the war because it was unconstitutional. I was asked, would I support it if it were? And I said I'd have a hard time getting there because of the man conducting the war. And this is how he's conducting it, and this is the guy. Persephone, can you post the two things, the one of Trump as Uncle Sam and the other where he's talking about drugs coming by sea? I just want to give people, if they didn't already
Did you see my post lampooning that, by the way?
Yes, I did.
I put a post of my own up there. Hey, and Megan wants to know, are politicians uninterested in outcomes? Michael, I really think they are.
No,
I think
they're not.
What they're interested in is short-term gain or the appearance of some kind of action, so that they
Right.
can gin up their constituency and keep their constituency committed. But the
Yeah.
long-term outcome, which is usually disaster, they don't give a shit because they're going to be out of office and moved up somewhere else.
Right. Or they'll at least be, they just blame something else. They don't blame the policy that they voted for what occurred. They're able to escape, the consequences of their actions. In other words, the outcome that they're primarily concerned with is power.
Correct. And by the time the consequences of their policies happen, Michael, they've moved up, right? They've moved from one office to another office, and now they don't care about the consequences of what happened in the last one. Oh God, that's so repulsive.
It's
That's so
totally repulsive. It's indicative of the, the Uncle Sam, I want you to enlist poster from the First World War, and then was put back out in the Second World War. Here's the thing, Donald. You have a son of military age. Do you want him to enlist? This kind of is something that I have a bit of a pet peeve about, is young men advocating for war that they're not going to fight in. I do. Now, I don't know if his kid is advocating it, but I don't hear Donald saying, hey, Barron, let's get you suited up. Let's get you going. Right? So who does he want to enlist? Who is he calling to enlist?
Well, let's hope he puts his money where his mouth is, Michael. I think when it came time for him to enlist, he certainly didn't.
Well, he did have bone spurs. Megan says, do they not know the history that would tell them the outcome of their policies? Megan, the problem is they don't care in that regard because they aren't going to suffer the consequences.
I think some do, Megan, as well. But in this case, in the case of Trump, I can actually say he probably has no idea, Michael.
No, he's an idiot. And can we just show how stupid this guy is real quick?
Yeah, let's do that. And if we can pop my tweet up there too, because I think my tweet says it all.
Sea, meaning drugs coming in.
Hold on, everybody.
Right,
listen.
Paul, with respect to drugs coming in by sea, meaning drugs coming in by water, by the ocean, by the sea. A lot of people don't know what I mean by sea. They think I'm talking about vision. I'm not. I'm talking about sea, like the sea. These gains have been the result.
Michael, you can't make that shit up.
No, does
can't make that
anybody
up.
does anybody out there believe there's a lot of people who don't know what it means to say the drugs are coming here by sea?
Yeah, no.
Maybe
no.
him. Maybe he didn't know. But that's the guy
maybe
that's
that
entrusted.
Maybe that was what happened. That's what happened at one of their gatherings where some cabinet minister was saying the drugs are coming by sea. Sea? What do you mean? I don't see anything. I don't see anything happening. No, by sea. Well, we're talking about my eyes, right? No, they don't come by. We're talking about this big body of water that lies on either side of the. Oh, here's my post then. One if by land, two if by sea. I mean sea, the water. Many people think sea means look, but I meant water, the big body of water. Usually there are waves on that water, sometimes big waves, huge waves, so big you can't. And sometimes people surf them. When they stand on a. I could have been real. It could have been a great. You know what my mom said when I told her I wanted to surf? She said, "You'd be great at that," and I was. Sea, like the water. Doesn't that sound like a perfect riff?
It does.
A Trump riff.
You know something? Charlie don't surf.
Charlie don't surf. That's right. Very good.
But yeah, I mean, this is the guy who evidently doesn't understand that everybody knows what it means when you say drugs are arriving here by sea. This is who we entrust.
Can you say
war.
25th Amendment? Because I think if Biden had said something like this, the future MAGA crew would have gone nuts. They would have gone nuts because they would have said this is evidence of dementia. I mean, what person does not have the mental acuity to understand that when you're saying drugs are coming by sea, you mean water, as in the ocean?
Yeah, and like to not understand that if you say a lot of people don't know that, who doesn't know that?
Yeah.
Like, is there
One man.
anybody?
Yeah, one man, the man who was saying it. But Michael, this sort of segues into Reason Magazine's article, which was aptly titled "Even Dictators Don't Fight Wars This Way." I thought this was a really good article. I might have posted it because it talked about how even dictators have massive propaganda wings because they have to convince their people that what they're doing is moral and just, and they know they have to gin up the people with the propaganda campaign. and convince them that what they're doing is right. Trump hasn't even done that. He's actually flown in the face of public opinion and said it doesn't matter. I can do anything I want.
Yeah, I mean, well, that's one of the reasons you want them to go to Congress, right? So Congress can debate the issue. The facts are put out there. They're the representatives of the people. The people get to decide, do they support this, do they not to support this? Trump decided that he doesn't need to make the case to anybody. And I think there's very much something to the idea. There's this claim that he thought it would be over in 3 days. I don't know if that's true or not, but I certainly believe it's possible. It doesn't strike me as strange that he would think that he was going to do to Iran what they did in Venezuela, and it would be all over, and people would just lose interest and go on to the next thing, right? He is a jabroni, a moron, a buffoon.
A jabroni. I love that. So, look, I guess he erred in this, Michael, because I think a lot of MAGA people thought, look at what we did to Venezuela. But commies, Michael, are still married to the earth. They still want to be here. There's an aspect of them that still wants material existence, wants wealth, enjoys the privileges of power. But when you're talking about Islamicists, man, they don't care. They don't care. Now, of course, the Islamicists may be interested in retaining power so they can spread their ideology around. But as far as the world goes, I mean, every time they post, Michael, they're like, I already surrendered to God. I don't surrender to you. They're saying in so many words, we don't give a fuck about life. And they've said it multiple times. Different factions of Islamicists have said it multiple times. We don't fear death. You do, and that's a weakness for you. And in a sense, it's what's keeping them going, because all they have to do, Michael, is hold on. That's all they have to do.
What I want somebody to do, I'd like to actually hear a case for the war without bullshit. I don't want to hear propaganda, right? I want to hear an accurate, honest case made for this war. Somebody the other day, for instance, said to me, well, if our intelligence community said that they weren't actually pursuing nukes, then why won't they just agree not to pursue nuclear weapons? Well, first of all, I really don't care what they agree to because I don't trust them. But they've agreed to not pursue nuclear weapons since 2003. I mean, they've said they don't want nuclear weapons. So it's not like they're out there saying, no, we're going to get them. That's just not true. That's inaccurate. So I would like for someone to actually make the case. And I would, more than to me. I mean, I'm pretty set here. I mean, I'll listen, of course, if it's rational, but what case would they make to the American people if somebody was going to make the case? Because look, the 2 weeks to a nuclear weapon, that was bullshit. That's just not true. I mean, it's just false, right? So I would like to have known what would be the accurate case. The thing is, if it goes to Congress and they debate it, a lot of the BS gets thrown out. People actually get to hear the nonsense that comes out of this guy's mouth, and then less people will be likely to support it. At least that's what I speculate would have occurred.
Indeed. And that's why you take a fucking case to the voters and to the representatives to prevent crap like this. Voters, Akira Felix says something I think is a pretty cogent thought here. Voters are more uninterested in outcomes than politicians. Politicians want to get reelected. That's true. And Michael, they're just responding to their constituencies. Their constituencies want the very things that the politicians are pretending to offer them. And because they say they're offering them, the constituents say, look, we're getting free stuff. We're getting this benefit here. They're tilting the scale in our favor here. Fuck equality before the law. Let's continue to get the spoil system democracy. That's what we like. So they're just responding to the people, Michael. And so we get a feedback loop of bad information, bad stuff going on. Like, for example, the latest thing with Mamdani. I always want to say Mamdani. There's a claim, Michael, that he has zeroed out the debt in New York. Did you hear that one? And
Say that again?
That he zeroed out the debt. The debt went from somewhere in 100 and something billion. I forget what their debt was in New York City, but it's been zeroed out by Mamdani. And by his, of course, they associate this fiscal responsibility with his deep, deep socialism. Of course, that's not entirely the case. I don't think this is is it a topic here? It's not a topic here, but it's very
No,
interesting.
you went. That's why I don't know what we're.
But if
like,
you do it, if you do a deep dive into it, it's not really the case. But I wanted to say it because the electorate voted this guy in,
they
because
did.
give him stuff, and they're justifying the fact that he's in, saying he's the best politician of all time, doing the things that he said he was going to do, which is basically giving New Yorkers free shit. But Albany's paying for it. That's the way it works. Uh, there was a claim here, Michael, in one of the articles from FoxNews.com that Trump is heading to China for his meeting with Xi Jinping with the upper hand. Do you agree with this?
No.
Well, talk about that a little bit because
Well, so the guy talked about basically all the things that we've been talking about today. He talked about how the economy is roaring. We're in a strong position now because we're not dependent on foreign oil. Our gas prices, I mean, not our gas prices, but, we're exporting oil. Our economy's roaring. The manufacturing base is coming back. China knows we've got the strong hand. I'm not going to get too graphic. I almost just went sick. But yeah, the article, that guy's op-ed, that's part of the problem is people live in their own worlds. Like, that shit is not true. Everything else that I saw said China's got the upper hand, that China's been winning the trade war, that, China can still get its, oil, it's okay along those lines, that they understand that Trump has been depleting our own military weapons in this war with Iran, that we're very preoccupied in that China is actually in the stronger position. Of course, it doesn't matter because no matter what happens in China, Trump will come back and all his sycophants will be saying, oh my God, he took it to the Chinese. So that's what's likely to occur. But no, the stuff that was argued in that piece is just nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, one of the arguments, or one of the aspects of the deal of the USMCA, Michael, that I found somewhat disturbing. It requires 75% of a vehicle's value originate in North America. 75% of a vehicle's value originate in North America. And they think that this agreement enabled manufacturers to restructure supply chains away from Chinese factories and into factories more viable or more compatible with America. But Michael, this seems to me to be one of the reasons why costs are so high, because if they're doing that, they're raising the costs of the vehicle. It's not lowering it. It's not making the resource more accessible to us. It's just raising costs in a protectionist desire to grab a market and to level these bullshit things they call trade deficits.
Yeah, and manufacturing, according to a Reason article, I think is up like 1.5%. Like we're not. I don't know. Like this stuff irks me to my core. When Obama was in office, I couldn't believe all the people that bought his bullshit. When Trump came on the scene and everybody that buys his bullshit, I don't know. Like because my mind doesn't work that way, I have a very difficult time understanding it. I don't put human beings on pedestals and then just defend them no matter what. I wouldn't do it for my parents. I wouldn't do it for my best friend. You know what I mean? So I don't relate to that. And it makes it very difficult. But that's the state that we're in right now, and I don't know how to get out. And it frustrates me.
Well, actually, I do, Michael, but it's going to be hard because there is a party out there that does act on principle and would not betray its principles in order to preserve the swamp or to preserve political power. And that party is called the American Capitalist Party, and you can go to AmericanCapitalistParty.org, check out the policies, see if you like it, donate, become a member. We are having our first national convention in September, so please join us for that. Michael and I will be speakers there. Jonathan Honig will be a speaker there. It's going to be a good time, folks, and we're putting ourselves on the map as a political party. Of course,
I can't wait.
I can't either. It's slow going, of course, folks, because liberty and reason are unpopular, and we know why they're unpopular, because it's hard to live a rational life. It's rewarding, of course, but you have to You have to work
Are
at
you
it.
going to have a car there? You're not going to have a car.
In Pittsburgh?
Yeah.
I might.
Well, the thing is, my friend Carlos, who was going to drive, had a car accident. So I'm thinking now we're going to have to take a train there, and I'm just wondering how we're going to get about.
Oh, you want to ride from me?
Well,
I mean,
from somebody.
I could probably get one.
Don't you have a driver, dude, or something, a limo?
Oh, when I do events, yeah. But
This is an event.
Yeah, but this is this is the party, so the party is not going to be getting me a limo.
You get the limo when others.
I find that a
invite it.
very un-Republican thing. Look, I like the fact that Thomas Jefferson wore his robe and slippers and only had 4 people in the executive working for him, usually out of his own pocket. I like that. That's the way that government should be run, not
I would love to see that from you. But let me tell you, this is actually for people out there who think that he's full of it. Let me just tell you. So the first time that my girlfriend Diana met Mark calls me at 4:00. I think it was on a Sunday. He was in mid-flight. He was at this hotel in Queens. And he says, "Oh, dude, I fucked up. I didn't tell you I was going to be here." So I tell Diana, "Hey, you want to just drive out there? It's only a 2-hour drive. Why not?" So she says, "Sure." So I said, "Mark, we're just going to come right now." So we take off, and Diana's a nervous wreck. She's going to meet this Hollywood star, and she's telling me, "Oh, I got to get the special shoes. I got to make myself look nice, this, and that." And, so we get there, we walk in. Mark is sitting in the lobby in his jeans and bare feet. I think with the hat on like he has now. It was awesome. So I think he would be there with his slippers and pajamas. I could buy it.
I would. In honor of Thomas Jefferson, I would do that. But hey, Michael, I want to get off the news track for a minute because it's depressing as hell. And I know there was another topic you wanted to talk about, which is,
No, I'm going to get to that tomorrow. We're going to talk to free speech stuff tomorrow. There's not enough time to do it justice. We're going to cover it tomorrow. And it's not in the thing here, so that works well.
Because something shocking came to me, not just from you, but I heard this before from one of my jiu-jitsu buddies who texted me that Alec Murdoch, the murderer from North Carolina.
Isn't it Alex?
No, they call him Alec Murdoch.
Okay.
Who was convicted of murdering his wife and one of his children, had his conviction overturned by the South Carolina Supreme Court. If you have seen any of the documentaries about this family, it is a completely and utterly corrupt family driven by this guy who is a charlatan, a complete and total shyster. And Michael, you know this because you've been around felons so much. If a guy gets caught, let's say, and he tells the police 5 different stories about where he was and what he was doing, can you pretty much assume that the guy's lying?
Yeah, but you're conflating things here, Mark.
Good.
I'm afraid.
Help me not conflate, because I'll tell you.
Well, I haven't actually read the decision, so it's hard for me to say.
Well, the decision might be right in the sense that it felt one of the clerks was prejudicing the jury.
But that's what matters. He wasn't found actually innocent. To get a finding of actual innocence is like off the charts difficult. They found that his rights were violated in some way that didn't result in a fair trial, and that is a separate issue from whether he's guilty or innocent.
So if the conviction is overturned, they can't try him again, right?
Yeah, they can.
Oh, they can. So they overturn the conviction, and he can be tried again. So it's not like he's going to walk free.
Yeah, all that does, they have to make a decision, but sometimes they don't, sometimes they do. Usually they do. They'll just retry him. The double jeopardy doesn't apply because it's the same offense. It's the same sequence. So, yeah, when you win an appeal, that just puts your case back to where it was at the beginning. It doesn't send you necessarily free.
Okay,
he might get an appeal bond. I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen there, but I doubt he will.
Okay, because that freaked me out. Because from everything I've seen, from all the research I did, because if anybody knows, I played his cousin Eddie. I did a lot of research on this family. It really seems like he was a guilty dude. But you know what, Michael? In this case, I think the law, following the law, is a good thing, because as much as we can dislike a guy who's an opioid addict, who's a liar, an alcoholic, like a philanderer, and probably a murderer, and absconds with his own clients' money to the tune of like millions of dollars. You know, the rights that we hold here as constitutionally inviolable are protecting him right now, and as they would be protecting all of us, because we live in a nation of laws, not men. All right, good. So I'm glad that he didn't get overturned, and that means he's free.
Yeah, Kira, it is like if they don't read the Miranda rights. For the record, I think Miranda v. Arizona was decided wrongly, but that's a separate issue. All right, so let me just tell you here, the people who they asked yesterday, they asked Persephone. Look at I'm all doing that funky thing again. All right, good. I'm back. Okay, so Persephone asked yesterday if people what their favorite meal to cook was. I think so. Jim Valiant says quality sashimi. Rare prime rib. Wow. Akira Felix says chicken and rice. Tenderloins filet mignon for Robert Naser.
Yeah,
Greg
baby.
Lewis says salmon. What's salmon? I think that Socrates liked to eat a lot of salmon.
He did. Socrates did eat a lot of salmon.
Jana Kleem likes chocolate fudge ice cream and eggs. And Megan asked a question about, she says, Trump seems to be doing so many outrageous things in such a rapid-fire manner. Was King George III also trying to elicit Trump fatigue in the American colonists? Was that the point of the grievances section of the Declaration of Independence, to overcome George III fatigue by enumerating all his despotic actions? I don't know. Look,
Thank you, Greg Lewis, for that $1.99 super sticker.
Thank you, Greg. And Diana says she was ready to break up. I don't know why, but maybe because she met Mark and he was so handsome, she figured she couldn't be with a schmuck like me. But either way, capitalist thought of the day, Mark. When you're here, you're giving it. Because
Really? Because I wanted to do the question today.
You could do both.
Okay. All right.
I'll do it.
You do it.
Let's do it now. I'll do it.
You do it.
Goodbye, Nicole. I'll do it. Okay, look. We advocate for capitalism on this show, first and foremost. We are a current event show, so it's not always economics that we're talking about. But the base of what we're arguing is for a free society, i.e. a capitalist system, one whereby individual rights are upheld. As I said earlier today, we will never achieve a capitalist society if all we do is talk to each other, the people who already agree with us. We need to step out and reach other people. We need to address other people. And in order to do so, we need a couple of things. One, we need to be nice people. We can't be dicks. If we're dicks, people don't want to hear from us. People don't like dicks. Damn. Okay. So, okay, some people, but not the dicks I'm talking about. I'm talking about people that act like dicks. Persephone's giving me this look, whatever. The point of the matter is that we need to be decent human beings. We need to come off as benevolent, as actually wanting what's best for people. Secondly, we need to have conviction. We need to have principles that we're arguing for, and we need to be able to do so rationally, and we need to be able to handle objections. I say we all do this. We all take on this charge. We all assume this task, and we get it done because, well, it's what's right. And with that, I give it over to Mark, and Mark can ask the question because he's dying to.
Yes. Now this is off of Persephone's question. I want to know what the weirdest thing you've ever eaten was. Come on, I have to know. And I might even go to YouTube and answer this question, Michael, because I have a few weird things that I've eaten. I want to know yours. So go to YouTube, answer that question. All right, guys. So I guess that concludes the show for today, Michael, but you will be on shortly.
2:30 p.m. Eastern Time on Everyday Ethics on this channel. And then at 3:15 p.m. Eastern Time, Crime, Corrections, and Culture, where we give you the straight dirt about the correctional system.
Right on. So join Capitalist Corner tomorrow. You have 23 hours to check your premises. So do me a favor, man. Do that. Check your premises. Peace.